Well, losses in the market are happening to the second largest economy in the world. And always remember, right, the long wave is global. It's not localized in one country, it is global and it impacts all of us in different ways. And hopefully, you are one of the few that are taking advantage of deleveraging. Now, this came up some questions. So, deleveraging does not mean selling your assets. So deleveraging simply means to get rid of any kind of debt, unproductive debt, because asset values are predicated on leverage, and that's now reversing. And it's only going to get worse. So the key is to minimize your debt. I know that's difficult and it's easy for me to say, but that's general advice that everybody could benefit. When you get a deleveraging, as you saw in Japan in the 1930s globally, those who were cash flow good, they did very well had if they had a job and were able to buy things much cheaper on the other side. So this is the key about deleveraging. Anyways, a couple charts today, and this one is the interesting. This is Chinese stock market after the blow off in 2015. We can see since that peak it's down over 50%. Those are the type of losses you don't want to have, right? 100% return just to get back to where you were. And this is the whole reason for why I built this model. I spent years studying bubbles and asset bubbles, and we have numerous ones. And obviously, one is Canadian real estate and Toronto real estate. I have a doozy. I went to my old neighborhood, first home, well, my parents' home, and just saw a house for sale, and I just was curious how much it went for, and I was totally shocked. Only because Torontonians' incomes in real terms haven't gone up, yet this home was astronomically overpriced still. So it's obvious this thing has a long way to go to the downside. But getting back to losses, and you see a nice trend line there, right? And if it breaks this trend line, this is long-term support since 2005, and something more serious has happened in China. So we're going to keep uh, or take a look at this and keep this updated for people who allocate. Now, here's the most important chart. It just was updated. I'm going to run this through you. I know you can stop and start this video, so I don't have to go that slowly. But this is just the private debt to GDP, just a measurement of risk. When do asset bubbles, economic winters occur? And if you see it at 150% level, that really started in 2006. And you can see we had a trend line that grew consistently and there was a blow off in 2021, and we've corrected in the blue line, the vertical blue line to the extreme right is where we are today, or in the first quarter of 2023. So we've met the criteria, right? Expanding debt, mostly that's gone into real estate values, explains a lot of why asset bubbles are still very large in Canada. And that's going to, Canadians will have to deleverage. They haven't started yet. That is, well, let's say they have, but in a small point. If you look back, I wasn't aware of this until I read Richard Vague's book, The Next Economic Disaster. If you look at all the way back to 1981, you see the peak there, vertical red, and then the blue line. That was actually a deleveraging. And that occurred simply because interest rates skyrocketed. That was the peak or the beginning of the monetary wave. So it's interesting that Canadians did deleverage. And then from 84 to 89, we had the first real estate bubble corrected. Private debt levels, you can see, went sideways pretty much until 2006. And that's really when this whole thing got started. So um, we have the precursors for economic winter or Great Depression, whatever you want to call it. I prefer economic winter because there is economic spring after. So, right, is to be cognizant. It doesn't mean the end. It just means death. The centralized wave is coming to an end. We need creative destruction in real estate and politics and a whole bunch of things. Now, this is my favorite chart. I just was curious. It's by accident. I wanted to see. Uh, Since Japan's bubble was greater than the US in the 1920s, it was interesting how it tracked it pretty much, right? Isn't this fascinating? It pretty much tracked the Japanese rise in private debt. And then you can see the blow off in 2020. Two reasons: Canadians just went into debt, interest rates went to zero, and the economy collapsed. But even today, in the first quarter, you can see that our private debt bubble is larger than Japan's. People want to deny we won't have economic winter. Okay, provide a reason why it won't happen. I would suggest that the difference from Japan is Japan is running surpluses, is running deficits. We have spendthrift governments. Interest we borrowed from zero. Uh, the bubble broke at 6%, so there's no interest rate cushion. There's very little government cushion, and people think it's not going to be worse. That's just delusional thinking. It's obviously it's going to end badly, and the most important thing is here's the information and the data. If you haven't read, by the way, Rich Gervais' book, The Next Economic Disaster, it's a great book. It gets into why that 150% is most important. Now, sine waves. If you ever seen a sine wave, and I just love this, it kind of sort of explains it. But if you understand the concept of energy and how energy moves through a medium, you'll understand the whole concept of the long wave, the real estate cycle, the business cycle, empires, and so forth, right? Nothing lasts forever. And then the assumption is because we're hardwired to think linear, that things will continue. And this is why most people lose money. The majority of people lose money because they don't understand cycles. It was that concept of the sine wave after studying the long wave for 15 years plus that I had my epiphany. I said, oh my God, this makes sense. And it was what I needed to be convinced that the long wave is a social cycle and why it repeats, right? We've made all the mistakes of the past. Now, people don't like what's coming. Obviously, I don't like it either. We're all going to know somebody who will be hurt severely because of this. But society seems to forget the lessons of the past. So what has happened before in the past, as Ray Dalio says, but it hasn't happened in our lifetime, and that's inevitable. So either you can prepare a small group, if you will. The majority of Canadians, Americans, Europeans will be forced to. That's the history lesson, right? That's the obvious thing. Anyways, I like these. I'm back at these things. I just took a little bit of time off because just the growth of the business took off faster than I thought. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So trying to do this format. I love this format. It's simple, educational, informative. I get to know you. You can hear me talk and articulate and educate you along the way, right? Give you a little bit of a red pill. Because if I try to give you the whole thing, it's overwhelming. Your brain will shut off. You won't believe me. I wouldn't believe me. And it's a much more effective strategy. Okay. So let's see. Going to try to do this every single day, and that way we can understand exactly what's playing out. Oh, one of the most important things is why I did set this up is obviously economic winter is a generation. So this is going to last a long time. A lot of political upheaval, a lot of changes. We're already seeing that in politics. Probably going to see the Democratic and the Liberal Party, which is a party I used to belong to. I have no idea who they are today. They're going to collapse. They're not working for the public. That's pretty obvious. They're just spendthrifts. We don't have the money. Canadians are living paycheck to paycheck and going into debt. So is the government. Where's this is not capitalism. This is creditism. And this is going to end badly. And we'll get back to fiscal conservatism because the economy is going to force this on us. So, but it's to get us through this, right? It's not only is to provide information how to get through economic winter and what it is in this quadrative social cycle, but how to prosper, and then of course, what are the solutions? What is going to drive us, and that field is exciting. And I'm going to probably on the weekends focus on technologies that are going to help us. So, anyways, hope you like this. And if you think people are interested, pass this on. We'll talk soon.